This sitting is resumed. Prior to the suspension, we were in standing finance committee. To that we shall revert.
Standing Finance Committee resumes.
Chairman. Head 85. In the name of the Minister of Youth and Community Empowerment, $22,600,691.
211. Was this number? This is right and not this.
Let's see. There were some amendments come down.
Welcome, Minister. Could you please request in?
Thank you, Madam Chair. At this point in time, I would like to beg your indulgence, of course, so that we can have sedulous discussion on the mandate given to the Ministry of Youth and Community Empowerment. I thank you. I ask for you to allow my staff at the ministry to grace themselves in this August chamber.
So
thank
granted.
you.
Any changes?
Look, this is the amendment here, but we don't see.
Before you start, let me just have a quickie with him.
Honourable Minister, we invite you to give your 10-minute opening remarks. Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
One moment.
Madam Chair, correction or amendment to the current sum being voted. Instead of 22,600,691, excuse me, 22,211,691.
You may go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This ministry has been given the task, certainly not an odious one, to ensure that we provide a safe and productive space for our young people. Young persons in this country who has been crying out in the wilderness, who has been disillusioned by a process that has not involved them. And we want to touch them in a special way. We want to give them that once in a lifetime opportunity to have a paradigm. And so we will have decided to come up with programs that are fit for purpose. We want to open the door so that a bright future can walk in for our young people. And so, Madam Chair, with the blessings of the Prime Minister of this country, you would have heard the Barbados Youth Advanced course being exposed on August the 15th. A new program which will seek to incorporate and involve all those young people at the bottom of the spectrum, and certainly those who would like to have a tangible stake in this country. This program, of course, will involve those between the age of 16 and 20. And we recognize as a government, and my trusted department has done studies to show that out of the 4,000 or so young persons that leave school every year, at least 2,900 remain unemployed and disengaged. Coupled with the other 5,000 or so that are already in society. There is an old maxim that says, and speaks to the fact that the devil finds work for idle hands. In this ministry, we are going to ensure that the young people, using of course their passion and imagination, that they have not only a voice, but a tangible space to develop their creative imagination. Of course, Madam Chair, almost everything great in this world has been created by our young people. And so we must give them that opportunity. We must scratch their minds with a new experience in such a way that they will never return to their old dimension. And that is the experience that we intend to share at the Youth Advanced Score, where they will have young persons, of course, a 6 weeks residential component. This component will seek to teach those young persons basic life skills, resilience, character building, those core values that are so lacking in today's youth as it relates to the society that they come from. After that 6 week component, there is going to be a training module designed specifically to attract the needs of our young people. We are not going to tailor-make programs for our young people. We are going to use their creativity, their desires, their imagination. So I'm happy to say today that after 2 cohorts, where we would have passed out around 350 or 360 persons, I am happy today to say to you, Madam Chair, and the entire country, that a lot of those young persons are all over Barbados, training in the not only constructive industry and the normal courses that we would know, but of course, Madam Chair, in the agricultural science. In the new sciences, the aquaponics and hydroponics. The aquaculture, Madam Chair, these young persons have an interest in technology. They understand better than most of us in here the usage of technology. And in this technological world, animation has become a big part of their conversation. And so this program will offer courses in animation, virtual science, robotics, of course. And there are some young people, and I'm happy to report today, that are involved in coding. We have 2 young persons in this country working for Google, as we know it, and Amazon. These are the type of experiences that we must give our young people. Because one of the things that this country has as a resource is our people. We may not have gold and bauxite like other countries, but certainly we have to invest in what we have and make the best of it. And it's our young people that need to be able to build out Barbados and give us the type of resilience we need as a country. And so I'm happy also to report to this country that we have young persons who have shown interest and have asked to be part of the biodiverse projects that will help inform us and militate against the threats of global warming. We have young persons who are interested in biodiversity and are keen to be involved in the Sea Turtle project, that are interested in, of course, the Green Monkey exercise. And definitely, and I know my colleagues will laugh when I say this, but there are some who are interested in being part of the program which will seek to protect the endangered species, what we know as Philodactylus, or the leaf-toed gecko. And there's a young persons who understand that it is the way how we treat to those things as like biodiversity and these projects that will pretty much determine our future, and the future as a country. And so, Madam Chair, I am happy to tell you that after the first phase of training, these young persons will certainly be involved in national projects. Because in the same way we are telling young persons that they have to meet us halfway and we are going to invest in them, we are also saying to them that there's something called give back. And you must be a part of building out Barbados. So the national projects could be, for instance, Madam Chair, the building of the hospital, painting of schools, being part of the labor market force, being involved in district emergency management, coastal zone management, being part of the cleanup exercise that is happening to this country, because we believe in changing the aesthetics of Barbados. We are saying that Barbados must be a clean place, and there must be a cosmetic overhaul. But at the same time, we are also saying that the most active players in this conversation are our young people. So this is what the Barbados Youth Advanced Corps is going to do for this country. It's going to help build up Barbados as we know it. And at the same time, it's going to give young persons the opportunity to live the Barbadian dream. And that's what we are saying as a government. Gone are the days where we are only interested in show paparazzi, glitz and glitter and glamour. Gone are the days where showmanship is the order of the day. We are saying that young persons in this country must have a tangible stake in the development of Barbados. And so our programs must be able to encourage our young people to put their hands to the plow and become part of society and building this country. In the same way, you will hear the Prime Minister say that many hands make light work. We are willing to work hand in glove with our young people. The antithesis of this, of course, is that no work make light hands do. So we must be able to engage our young people and find meaningful employment for them. And that's why I commend the member who went before me for the Job Start Plus, because a lot of these young people will be able to filter into this program. We are also saying as a government that we are going to give young people the opportunity, using their passion, their unreserved potential, to be able to do everything that they want in Barbados as long as it's positive. And of course, Madam Chair, there are those who we call the most vulnerable, who are crying out like a voice in the wilderness, who for over the last 10 years, lost 10 years, as I may say, have not been part of the building out of Barbados. We call those guys the guys on the block. We believe as a government, the moral test, the moral litmus test, is how we treat those at the bottom as well. You would have heard the Prime Minister and the entire cabinet and government spoke lucidly about what we have done as a government. And if our first couple of weeks of coming to office, we were saying the worst decision ever made since adult suffrage, as it relates to education and tuition fees. But in the same way we will treat those at the top, we are saying those at the bottom of the spectrum must be involved in this Barbadian exercise and the Barbadian dream. And so the fellows, what we call the block guys, we have started a program called Building Blocks, because we believe that the small blocks that are built as a foundation is what will grow and develop this country. And those same youngsters, they may not have the academic skills and qualifications like those at the top of the spectrum, but what they have is the creative imagination. And I'm happy to report to the country today that we have started building, in a literal way, 4 blocks around Barbados. That in the Back Ivy, one in Bonnets, Britain's Hill, one in Silver Hill, of course. I won't forget that. Then there is one in Parkinson Field. And I'm happy to say that not only is there a sense of ownership and excitement amongst those youngsters, but of course, there is a sense of community involvement and altruism, where persons from all over the community come together to lay those blocks. We are going to build out those youngsters, not only in a literal way, in terms of providing commercial spaces and allowing enterprise, of course using the trust loans, because they must understand that they have to walk, not in front or behind, but at our side as a government in this journey. So we are saying that this exercise, this blockpreneurship that we are doing, is going to create an atmosphere for commercial activity, allowing these same youngsters that were once in deviant behavior and delinquent behavior to be involved in wholesome exercises. We are going to scratch their minds with a new experience so they will never walk and go back to their old dimensions. That is what we are going to do as a government. And the community department, of course, we have just put a sum of money for the repairs and building out of the community centers. There's a new program, of course, in the community department. And everybody in Barbados, those who are interested in the creative arts, would have transfixed their eyes, of course, to our Beige to the World Talent Show. Because one of the things that we believe is that there is a pool of creative talent in Barbados. And so, Madam Chair, we have decided that this talent must not only be seen in the 4 corners of Barbados, but must bless the entire world so that Barbados will be recognized for what it is in terms of having that talent. We are saying to Barbadians to bring their creative imagination, bring their creative talent. We are going to infuse it as a government, and we are going to allow Barbados to be the shining light in the world, the country, the beacon, the mecca of the Western Hemisphere as we know it. But we understand fully that communities can only do it if there is a symbiosis of what happens at the bottom in terms of the youth and those who we consider the elderly. There must be mentorship programs. There must be active community groups. There must be Trojans in the community.
A few seconds, please wrap up.
Who are responsible for taking care of our nation's children. I am saying that I want to give this country the calm and rested assurance that these programs that we have before you are going to change and transform the lives of the young people in this country. And of course, regenerate a community interest, a sense of altruism and activism like never seen before, because we believe that Barbados at this point in time requires each and every single person to come aboard on this fight. And we believe that if we lose one, Madam Chair, we lose one too many. So with those few words, I'm asking members to comment and let us have meaningful discussion about the way forward for the Ministry of Youth and certainly Community Empowerment. I thank you.
Thank you. Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The reality around our youth population in Barbados today is that too many of our young men are going to the prisons. Too many of our young men are going prematurely to violent graves. Too many of our young women find themselves vulnerable and exposed to the graph of sexual predators because of their desperate economic situation. And there's too much of a sense of obvious drift existing among our youth population. And one may content oneself in pointing to those negative realities, but I think if one is to be honest and balanced, one would also acknowledge the high levels of creativity existing among our young people, the level of intellect that is obvious and is the product of and the outcome of significant levels of financial investment in education and in training of our young people over the years in Barbados. If one looks clearly and one is honest, one sees the existent energy that is there as well. So there is a positive side. And I said all of that to say that as we treat to the well-being of our youth and provide an opportunity for them to advance in this world, what we're doing in real terms is nation building. We're developing the Barbados of not only tomorrow, but in many respects the Barbados of today, because the urgent moment is upon us when we have to ensure that as a government, as a people, we get it right, and that our young people, the present and future of this nation, that they get it right. And I said all of that simply to congratulate you, Minister, on your appointment, and to underscore my view that the mandate, the responsibility thrust upon your shoulders is a serious and significant one. And I look forward in the exchanges of this exercise to hearing you and your ministry team relate the vision that you have for young people to the numbers and the programs outlined in the documents.
Thank you. Honourable Member for St. Lucie.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to congratulate the Honourable Minister for so eloquently exposing what his ministry, or the mandate for his ministry, and certainly from the strategic goals, which I've noticed, the last two, seem to be very, very focused in what we do for our young people. But I'm particularly concerned, Madam Chair, Minister, with what is happening at our community centers. As you move across the island a number of our community centers appear to be in, from time to time, have gone into serious disrepair. And in addition to that, evidently we're pretty much closed up. Now, there are times when their community groups or persons would get together and raise funds for the repairs of these centers, which is all well and good. But I'm concerned about the actual management of the centers. I'm concerned about the actual availability to a number of the very young people which we want to serve, the availability of these centers for the use by these young people. I want to know what actually is the role of the community aides in this whole exercise, because, and as I said, a number, and I speak from experience in my own constituency, St. Lucie, where you have difficulty in some instances in getting entrance to the centers because sometimes some of the aides cannot be found, or people believe or behave, to be honest, as though the centers belong to them and are not for the use of the people. And I will have a follow-up question after that.
Minister, I want to thank you. Over the last 10 years or so, community centers were defined by a new meaning. They were called solitude or isolation centers. Unfortunately, we decided in this ministry that there must be a facelift as it relates to how community centers operate, how groups within communities operate, how programming in the centers, so that they can reach the basic needs of the community. And so, with this new budget that we are asking the August Chamber to approve, we have had reason to start a program called the Community Management Committees, because we believe that communities must have a physical state. And what happens in community centers? We believe that communities, similar to what happens in Parkinson and the Parkinson Resource Center, that is managed by a community and managed very efficiently. The community is responsible for the maintenance of the building. Plumbers, carpenters from within the community come and give, as part of community altruism, give their time, their effort, and sometimes their funds to ensure that they have a safe haven for not only children, but the elderly in the community. So I'm making a special appeal today because this is something that we believe is the right model to carry this country forward as it relates to community building. So to your question, Minister, and there's also pilot projects being done right now at Rockfield and St. Mars. These are 3 centers that are being manned by the community. And the interesting thing about it is that since we have started this pilot project, these centers have been managed with a high level of proficiency. There has been painting done by the community. There have been programs instituted by the community. The community is responsible for the security of the centers. Their report to the community is, and the officers, any problems or concerns. And we infuse what they are doing and try to make programs relevant and fit for purpose. Now, the other question about the aides in communities, of course the aides are the point persons within the communities. Those are the persons who are responsible for ensuring that programs within communities have a parochial feature to them and that they respond to the needs of that particular geographical space. So they interact with the communities, formulate programs based on the needs after due diligence, and then report to the officers who would put the program up the line to the chief community officer and obviously the permanent secretary in ministry, so we can have those programs augmented. That is the system that works. Unfortunately, over the years, it has not worked. There was concern of money being spent, rather than at community centers, on graduations. And the centers were never opened for whatever reason. We are saying that there is a trust in this ministry to have community management committees. We are going to ensure that there is a new drive as well. It has started where we stimulate the communities and encourage them to form community groups, because we believe that the cultural groups, the social groups, the clubs that we had in communities was an integral part of the sustainable development of that community. Because the sustainable development speaks to people. It is how you build out people in a community. It was basically the bedrock for the growth and development of communities, community groups. And so there is a new trust in this ministry to have community groups active again. And we have put in our budget, our proposed plans, around $260,000+ to be able to lend financial assistance for those community groups. Because we believe that community groups will be the answer to a lot of the disillusionment that is permeating the communities. And over the years, as the member Parliament of St. Lucie rightly alluded to, the community centers have been in a state of disrepair. I, at one time, called them isolation centers, because that's what we thought they were. And we are saying that we have decided as a ministry to put our money where our mouth is and what is important to people. And so we have started, the repairs have started already in a number of centers, and we are going to do it across the length and breadth of Barbados. We are also saying, and we are thankful for the philanthropic organizations like the Maria Holder Trust, because government can't do it alone. It's about partnerships. And we understand that unless you have good partnerships, you cannot have the sustainable development that a country imagines to have. So we are saying to those organizations, the Sandy Lane Trust, organizations, community organizations and groups, and the private sector for coming on board. Harris Paints, that give us a lot of paint for these centers. Because they understand that they are part of Barbados. And if they are serious about the development of Barbados...
You have a few seconds left.
I would not catch a lot of fry, Madam Chair. But I am only saying that communities will have a new breath of fresh air. And we will inject new life, and not only the centers, but groups within the communities, so that they can lift and shoulder the entire community. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. I heard you mentioned, this perhaps may be more directed to the Chief Community Development Officer. You mentioned about the management teams from communities being set up. I would want to know how this process is, what is the process for this in terms of the setting up, actually, in terms of the choosing of persons for these management teams from within the communities.
Madam Chair, good evening. Honourable, my name is Sandra Greenwich, the Chief Community Development Officer. Honourable MP for St. Lucie, I'm responding to your question about the way in which the management committees are chosen. I think you would be aware that communities are diverse, And it's quite easy to talk about management committees for each center, but there is not a situation where one cap fits all because of the nature of the various communities and the types and the people who are interested. So as a pilot project, we met with the communities who appeared vibrant, most vibrant, and because it has to be a phased process, there's no way that it would be possible to implement all management committees at a given time. So we met with the interested groups and group representatives at these centers, and we agreed to form an interim steering committee, which would be a pilot project for the management, after which we would have all groups meet and there would be a nomination process and we would take it from there. So this is really a pilot to see how it goes. And as Minister said, it has been working very well, and we will review it and try to expand it as time goes on within the coming year for sure.
Thank you, Chief. One other question, though. I noticed here under the community the program 422 with the community development department. It is responsible for community mobilization, construction, management, maintenance, etc. I have noticed that there have not been many new community groups in the last, in my constituency, in the last few years or so. And some of those which existed have actually gone very, very dormant. What is the ministry doing to assist in the resuscitation or of the groups that would have gone dormant, or the establishment of new community groups? And because I think sometimes that we get the impression when you hear people hear about a community group, they think is a football club or cricket club. I see a community group as one being diverse in what it offers to the public, whether to the people in the community, whether it is cricket, football, training in terms of classes being established for basketry, icing making, and all these kind of things. I know this used to happen in communities before when I was growing up. So I want to know what actually the ministry is doing in terms of its mobilization and in terms of its resuscitation of all the groups that were established before, or looking to establish new groups. As the community development chief said, communities are diverse, they are different. So I want to know what is the approach to the ministry in this regard.
Minister, we're all aware that in any organization or any institution, there are ebbs and flows because the institutions comprise persons who age, whose interests wane, and whose circumstances change. I'm very proud of the fact that the staff at the Community Development Department, assisted by the youth commissioners, are working arduously at reviving community groups. And actually, there are a number of new groups that have been formed behind the scenes, and we're now working on them to bring them to the fore. Some of these are seniors groups, like the one that comes to mind at Briar Hall. Then there are children's groups, a variety of children's groups, because we have placed emphasis on children's groups, started to place emphasis on children's groups, which we will continue to do, because by doing so, we engage parents and adults who look on willingly then come and volunteer. So we have some of those groups going at the Grisettes, for example, Parkinson, for example, which is a beautiful example. And we are about to launch, with the approval of the Permanent Secretary and the Minister, we've submitted a proposal. We are about to launch a project which has been going as a pilot project called the Safe Havens Project, which will see the centers being utilized in the evenings and weekends. This is a program which will accommodate young people in two divisions, a junior division, ages going up to 12, and a senior division, the teens from 13 up to 18. And this is a response to the request from the community. We have already seen the groups formed, and we're developing leaders from within these groups. So it is not a community, our plan is not to make it a community development department group, but a group that is controlled, led, managed, not by the community development department, but by the residents. All this takes time and planning, and the department and the ministry, we are working simultaneously on a number of things. And therefore, within 1 year, it is not possible to see everything blossom at the same time as you would like to. But I assure you that with the leadership of the Honourable Minister, Minister Ford, and the Permanent Secretary, the Community Development Department is working, the staff is working with the groups. I want to say too that don't forget the Community Technology Program, which utilizes the resource centers, is also, the Community Technology Program is also sustained and managed by the staff. So this is a program that we have expanded, we have tried to keep alive, and we have groups coming out of that too. In fact, some of the Safe Haven groups are groups that came out of the It's for Teens. The It's for Teens is a 6 weeks program. Once that ends, a lot of the youngsters feel there's a gap. They feel left alone. And they themselves have come together and spearheaded negotiations for these Safe Havens groups. So work is being done with our limited resources and with the encouragement of the Permanent Secretary and the Minister, the staff. They really are working beyond the call of duty.
If I may add, I think at this juncture in time, in the history of our country, Barbados is at the perfect place for volunteerism, activism, altruism, give back. You would have heard the Minister of Education in this same geographical space spoke loosely about the Give Back program. I spoke to the country last year in June, July, and asked them to come to be part of our summer camp program. 260 persons responded. I spoke Friday, and this was not by a waving of a magical wand. This is because Barbadians understand the importance of being part of building up this country. And I said that to say that community groups feel the same way. They are now reaching out to the ministry. All they're asking for is the financial and structural wherewithal so that they can be part of building up their community. And we are saying as a ministry, we are welcoming you with open arms because we believe that this is the way how we are going to have that paradigm needed in communities and needed to help build out this country. So I'm saying to all community groups out there, and all persons who are interested in being part of the community, we welcome you to come on board. And this is a ministry that has an open arm approach because we believe now more than ever this type of approach and selflessness is needed to build our country. That's what we believe.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm certainly looking forward to especially see what is happening in my constituency because that's where I'm responsible for. I have a new community group that is just about a month or so old in the Greenwiches Social and Cultural Club, and certainly we'll be looking to get some help for those persons. And as a community person myself, I will be really calling on the ministry because this is where we have to actually rescue our young people and our, not rescue the adults, but bring the adults to work alongside them, to nurture them, and to keep them on the straight and narrow way. So I certainly look forward, and I will come back, if necessary, during the course of this debate to certain other questions that I have and comments in relation to this ministry. Thank you.
Thank you. Honourable Member for St. Michael South.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Honourable Minister of Youth. I have a question. Really just want some elucidation, perhaps, Minister. If you take a look at your estimates, you, in 2018-2019, $9 million was allocated to the ministry. In 2019-2020, $18 million. In 2020-2021, $28 million. So in the last year, for example, there's been an increase in $10 million for your ministry, which obviously suggests to me, and should suggest to all of Barbados, that the government is taking youth very seriously. One of your programs, and I suspect your chief program, is the Barbados Youth Advanced Corps, for which you've received about $9 million, about $15 million, a significant amount, of which $9 million is between operating expenses and professional services. So it's not even tied up in, the money given to you for this program is not even tied up in salaries. It is really for programming. So if you could explain to me, perhaps, what is the purpose of the Youth Advanced Corps? How many persons you have now? What are the aspirations of the program? And perhaps the fundamental difference between the Corps, the Youth Advanced Corps, and what used to be the Youth Service, and how I could perhaps get some of my young persons in the constituency of St. Michael South into this program as well.
Thank you, Minister. I know that you understand that my brain is able to assimilate this information. But I thank you for those questions. Youth Advanced Corps, first of all, I think that we can go back. I can go back to your last question and show so that we can pretty much determine the difference between the Youth Advanced Corps and what was the Youth Service as we knew it. When, in 1994, we had 360-something persons every year graduating from what we call the Youth Service at that point in time. Over the last 10 years, that number dwindled, was reduced, dissipated to around 70 or 80 every year. Now if you have 7,000 young persons disengaged, every single year, about 4,000 young persons leave school. 2,800 are unemployed. Adding to the numbers of listlessness, inertia in this country, and obviously lawlessness. To be able to make a change and difference in young person's life, we said as a government we have to have skill. We must capture them and put them in our embrace, put them in a safe haven. I heard the chief spoke about that, where they'll be given the life skills needed, and along with that, the training. Because we believe that training must be an important part of the discourse now. We must train young persons, but not only train them in what we call the normal, everyday construction, and the training that would have been a part of the conversation 10, 15 years ago. But there are new dimensions that our young people are interested in. I believe that at the embryonic stage, young persons know about technology. They know the WhatsApp, probably in the stomach. I believe that. I believe that young people, when they're born with a technological gene in them. So what we are saying is that we must be able to have courses that will speak to these new imaginations of our young people and the passion of them. Because they are passionate about computers. They are passionate about cell phones. They are passionate about animation. They have a desire, an unequivocal, unreserved desire, to be part of this technological space. Virtual sciences. They want to have a conversation about what is happening in the technosphere, and they can do it with a touch of a button. This is the young people that we are trying to produce. Because we are not going to spend money to produce young persons who can only invest in Barbados. We have to produce world leaders. And the only way we can do that is if we have young persons who are fit to create their own space and destiny outside of this little space we call Barbados. And so that is why we had to increase the nature of the courses offered. And obviously it will come with a cost because these courses, unfortunately, are not cheap. We said, and you would have heard the Prime Minister eruditely say that these young persons will be given a stipend because we believe that we will assist them each and every way how. So we said as a government, we will give you a stipend of $600 a month so that you can get to your classes, so you can have a proper meal when the day is up, and so that you have that inspiration to move forward. That $600 allow you to be disciplined in basic accounts. You learn how to save that money, how to utilize it for that which is important. That is the things that we are trying to imbue in our young people, to develop them with a sense of discipline. And the only way we can do that is, of course, Minister, if we trust them. And we trust them to walk us in this journey. And that's what we are saying to our young people. We are going to invest in you. We are not going to take $6 million and give the caterers.
Your answer.
I will come to that. I will close it shortly.
You are to that.
Pardon me?
You are to that. Just wrap up.
I'm wrapping up. I'm saying that we are not going to take $6 million and drop it like manna from the sky into caterers' pockets. This $6 million must go to invest in our young people to help build them out so that they can be part of the Barbadian conversation. And I'm saying to the minister that the money, the increases that you see there is worth every single cent from this government, because there is nothing better than to see those young people, as you saw in the whole of Barbados, who were in eye shot, saw at the Kensington Oval when they're presenting themselves, persons who you would never have believed would have put on a uniform. They operated as a team, and team is my background for together every single person achieve more. They worked together. They were slick, as the young people said. Because we believe that is the potential of our young people. And it is my dream to see 2,000 march from Kensington Oval in the next 2 years. Showing Barbados how it can be done and providing that movement we need with our young people. Because it's a movement, and it is going to be a positive movement around this country when young persons saw what others could achieve. And I always tell our young people, don't fear the naysayers. Don't mind the person that tell you that you cannot achieve anything. The only thing that you must fear is God. But you must also think clean and aim high. And that is what we are, as a government, is saying to our young people.
Thank you very much.
We are going to give that opportunity to think clean and aim high.
Thank you. Honourable member? You finished? You're finished?
Thanks, Minister. No.
Thank you.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Minister, I believe, and I'm sure you share the view, that one of the radical shifts that we have to realize in Barbados is a deliberate, calculated move towards a culture of entrepreneurship. Our young people must be taught that you simply cannot aspire to go through the system and then find a job in somebody's employ, but that you can become an employer yourself. So we have to see that radical shift towards a culture of entrepreneurship. The technology, as you rightly observe, is the context that will help us to get there. It also provides the capacity to achieve in this regard. we have to see a new class of employers and a class of employers that is enduring. The history of Barbados is that when it comes to black entrepreneurs, they have proven to be fairly transient and non-enduring. And we have to see, therefore, the creation of a class of employers that is enduring. A question, I see a lot of exposure with reference to the youth entrepreneurship scheme. And I'd like to hear you speak a little bit about that to update us as to the level of achievement in relation to the goals which have been set for that program.
I want to thank you, Leader of the Opposition. And I want to say to you that your views are not dissimilar from mine, especially when I first visited the Ministry of Youth and Community Empowerment. The reality is that out of the 4,000 persons that leave school every single year, at least 1,460 have a burning desire to be entrepreneurs. They want to own their own business. And certainly, our youth entrepreneurship scheme, which has been going on for the better part of probably 20, 30 years now, they have responded, and the numbers are there. I will get to the numbers and let my PS talk about that shortly. But we have responded to the needs because we recognize that with creativity comes special desires. And these young people want to create their own market space. Along with that, of course, you would have heard about the building blocks, which I alluded to earlier. We graduated over 200 young persons in those 4 blocks. They would have gone through a youth entrepreneurship scheme training module that allowed them to have not only the life skills, but basic entrepreneurship skills in accounts, marketing, you name it. Where that they'll be able to, along with the trust loans, be able to sustain their businesses. But just as important is the follow-up, monitoring and evaluation. Because we must never, ever detach the umbilical cord at a premature stage. We must walk young persons in the journey from start to enterprise. And you've heard that as one of the maxims of the Youth Entrepreneurship Scheme. Along with that, we have a new program which we have partnered with the prison. And the Member of Parliament for St. Thomas, she's very aware of what I'm about to say. The Youth Prison Fellowship Association, and I want the whole of Barbados to understand what I'm saying. Ex-convicts, more than likely, are not given the opportunity to be employed in this country. When they go for jobs, you often hear that they can't get work because the employer recognized that they were ex-convict, certificate of character. And that posed a big problem, but one of the things that we realized, and thank God that I was given the opportunity to speak to them, is that they have creative skills. They produce the best paintings in Barbados, the best jewelry out of indigenous products. They create clothes. They're very good at mechanics, body work, you name it. We are saying that my department is going to partner in a special project with the prison to ensure that those persons that come out, that they have an opportunity to own their own businesses selling these products. And this is something that I will move with every single sinew of my being to ensure that this project becomes a success. Because in Barbados, the level of recidivism is extremely high. Too high for a small country like this. And we are saying that we have to open up the net and provide opportunities for those persons. And we are going to talk about clusters too. Because those persons that are inside will be able to sell their products on the outside. I've already had conversations with the superintendent so that they can help support their families. Because it's also about trying to ensure that there are support mechanisms for the families of inmates and ex-convicts. We have to reintegrate them into society. And entrepreneurship is one of the tools that we will do it with. Because they have the talent already. They just want structure. I will let my PS talk about the youth entrepreneurship scheme and the success stories and what we are doing as it relates to building up Barbados with that department. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister, Madam Chair. To the Member of Parliament, with respect to the work being conducted by the Youth Entrepreneurship Scheme, the Minister spoke about the number of persons who were trained as part of the Building Blocks program. That was also in conjunction with the Youth Entrepreneurship Scheme, where we have a number of persons in those 4 communities, over 200 persons trained. But over a period in this current financial year, we have stimulated a number of new venture creations, assisted the creation of over 7 new businesses, expanded over 5 businesses, formalized over 6 businesses. I think we've had over 10 new jobs generated in the last record. We've had approximately 40 jobs retained by persons who are involved in entrepreneurial activities. We've provided business counseling to over 115 new and existing clients. We've delivered business solutions to over 84 young budding entrepreneurs. And a number of businesses, that number I don't have, but a number of businesses have applied for technical assistance, including advertising, legal services, procurement of equipment, business development, because they need assistance in that area. And we've also assisted them in marketing their business by utilizing existing programs like BMX, Girlfriends Expo, as well as our own expo that we coordinate to provide them with an opportunity to basically let people know what they are selling, the goods and services that they offer, and provide them with an opportunity not just to display, but also to sell their goods and services. One of the things, though, I think we need to stress on is that, well, YES has been conducting a number of programs with a very small staff, I may add. We recognize, though, that we do have to get back into the schools. There was a YES Juniors program that was being conducted under YES for quite a number of years. With decreasing budgets over the years, there was not a very strong focus on YES Juniors. What we have decided that for the next financial year, we're going back into the schools. And we do have a number of schools, including Parkinson Secondary School, that have approached us saying, yes, we are willing, we want you to come and help us. In the past, we trained teachers who would then be trained to help these young people develop that entrepreneurship knowledge so that they can see the opportunities available to them to create their own businesses and make a viable income and enjoy a good quality of life. And so we are going to go back into the schools to help children to understand that there are other options for you. You don't just have to go and work for someone else. You can work for yourself. We also, in addition to the prison fellowship project that the minister spoke about, we intend to continue working with the Building Blocks program. We have just, as the minister said, we just started the physical construction of the first phase of projects in the 4 communities. In the next phase, we are moving towards 8 communities. And we're now consulting with the relevant partners to identify sites, hopefully government-owned sites, that we can then utilize with the help of the community and then help them, because it's their ideas that we're taking, to really identify those areas of business that they can get into. And a big part of the preparation for those persons to start their businesses will be to have the Youth Entrepreneurship Scheme staff train them and help to develop them. But we recognize that it just can't be a one-off event. We have to work with them over a period of time to get them to that point where they can then be sustainable and be able to run their businesses on their own. Thank you.
And of course,
I've heard both yourself and the PS minister refer to building blocks. Is it the same as the community? Is it the same as the block entrepreneurship?
The building, we call it, it is my acronym, my term, my small acronym for block entrepreneurship. So you call it blockpreneurship. Just the same way that we slip of the tongue, you may call it young people, youngpreneurships. Or youngpreneurs. Those things, but these little acronyms and backronyms is what attracts young people, and they remember them. Blockpreneurs feel very proud. Member of Parliament for St.
I am not querying your terms, Minister. I have even heard one of your colleagues refer to Christpreneurs. I'm still trying to work through that one.
You're a pious.
So I'm not questioning your term. I just want to be sure that when you refer to building blocks program, you're talking about the block entrepreneurship program and the numbers of people who have been trained and the number of businesses which have been, that's what you referred to, that's what PS referred to just now, the number of people who have been trained, the number of businesses which have been started, the number of community business centers which have been established, that's what you're referring to.
Not just the building blocks program, I'm referring to right across the country and right across the sphere of clients that we attract.
I'll just ask one more question, Minister. Sorry, Madam Chair. The summer camps program is now a thing of the past?
No. I'm glad you asked that question. But
I don't see any provision for it.
Let me first go back to the building blocks, and then I just wanna add some clarity, so we can be as transparent as possible, probably translucent too. But the reality is that we said, because obviously you would need to have contractors to help build these things, these projects. But we said to the contractors, who by the way must come from the community, because as part of our manifesto, we say that once projects are under $250,000, they must involve the community that the projects are being done. So the contractor, must I say, comes from within the community, and the blocks are built out by the same youngsters who live and lime on the blocks daily. While we were in here vocalizing on their behalf, they were working hard in the sun, by the sweat and brow, to put one block atop the next block as they seek to build and redefine their lives. That is what they were doing, because we said that every single block must be built up by these same young people, so that they will understand that their hard work, that they can achieve their goals. And that is the discipline and commitment that we spoke about earlier. To get back to your second point about the summer camp program, and Madam Chair, I would again repeat, when I came to this ministry, over $6 million was allocated to a summer camp program. $6 million. 3.5 or more was spent on catering. Now, if that is not the highest level of delusion, I don't know what is. In other words, the level of delusion, Madam Chair, knew no boundaries over the last 10 years. $3 to $4 million spent on catering, but nothing redounded to the benefit of our young people in the summer program, where they were not being cared for in the way that we would expect if we are serious about our young people. In less than 18 months, the time it would take an elephant to born a calf, you would know that. 18 months. We decide, and under the guidance of the Prime Minister of this country, that I speak to Barbadians in a way that they understand that they must put all hands on deck to help care of our young people in the summer. And I'm happy to say on Friday, I don't have the date exactly here, but on the Friday evening, I spoke to Barbados, and he told Barbadians, former teachers, policemen, persons who are involved in community work to come out by the Monday and take care of the nation's young people in the summer time. Using community centers, the schools were being repaired. We got some still. And I want to thank the churches who give their physical space, even food, to be part of this program. And I want to say by the Monday, 260 Barbadians came out and says, I want to be part of building out and taking care of our children during the summer camp program. And I want to thank them with all 4 chambers of my heart. You, the doctor, you would know. Because they understood the importance, Madam Chair, of taking care of our nation's children. And I want to say that the camp was a success. Member of Parliament for Christchurch West opposition lead, St. Michael West opposition leader, with only $260,000 voted for by this government. We were able to move a program that cost the better part of over $6.5 million to $260,000, utilizing people as a resource. And that is nothing short of magical. But you know why we did it? We did it because we understand that Barbadians believe in this country, Barbados. And they believe in our young people. They understand that the future of this country, the unborn child, will make the difference and will cause Barbados to be able to mitigate the existential threats that we face on a daily basis. So I'm saying to you, the reason why you don't see that big number is because you are not looking at the budget the last 10 years.
I wasn't registering a complaint, Madam Chair. I was asking for an explanation. I'm quite happy with the explanation, and I congratulate you and your team.
Honourable Member for Christchurch West.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And I'd like to direct this question to the Minister in particular. He would be well aware that there's a resource centre that falls in Sergeant's Village, which is the culmination of 3 constituencies of Christchurch: Christchurch West, Christchurch West Central, and Christchurch East Central. And he would also be aware that that resource centre has been condemned and is no longer fit for use. And I would like to ask the Minister, what plans are there for the resource centre at Sergeant's Village? Because I'm sure with its geographical location, it would be well utilized. And if you do have plans for it, I would like to suggest the plans that are similar to the Bonnets Resource Centre, because in addition, not only does it have a meeting place, but it also has an IT section and a library and so on, which was designed by my predecessor, Sir Henry Ford, and has served the Bonnets area well. I'd like to ask, what plans do you have for the Sergeant's Village Resource Centre?
I want to thank you, Minister, because if I'm not able to answer that question, I would not be able to go and knock on doors in Christchurch West Central. And I want to thank you for giving me that opportunity to have the spirit to go and knock on every single door, nook and cranny in Christchurch West Central. Because I wanted to give you this calm and spiritual reassurance that money was put not only for the center that you refer to as Sergeant's Village Resource Community Center, the old St. Dosa, because they're going back to history. It was a St. Dosa community center that used to play cricket and football and things for years. And I'm ashamed that over the last 10 years, not even, Madam Chair, a sprinkling of paint was applied to bring some cosmetics to that center. It is a dying shame. But I am saying to the good people of Christchurch, the entire Christchurch, that money has been put in this year's estimates to add to the repairs, of course, and to ensure that this center now becomes one of the new resource centers. And I want to also say, now I'm here, and to all those in Ear and Eyeshot living in the Christchurch area, that we already have a structure for the community management committee. Those guys in Sergeant Village, albeit that they are operating in danger right beside a center that has been condemned, has just put on a community cricket competition. And I want to thank the Member of Parliament for St. Christchurch West for lending his financial assistance. I know that it would not be a difficult task for me to ask him to do that. But I want to thank him. He may have the wherewithal. What I'm saying is that we are going to work with that committee. And that committee came about. That's why I said that there is no, and it's going back to the Member of Parliament for St. Lucie, there may not be a structured group, but you know something? Stars align. Persons come together. It's that once in a lifetime moment when history and hope will rhyme. That is what happens in communities. They come together, they start working on a project, and then they form groups because everybody has one single and singular focus. And that's what happened at Sergeant's Village, or St. Dosa, as the older folk and Airshot would call it. The community start playing cricket on evening, then they say to themselves, Member of Parliament for St. Michael West, and Big Christchurch West, we know that you probably will be able to support us. We want some whackers, and they started to clean the areas and take care of the center. They start to take care of the surroundings, the environs, and they were able to prepare a pitch. And we had a very successful tournament in Sergeant's Village. And that is what we are talking about in terms of communities. But I want to give him the rested assurance that not only in Christchurch and the St. Dosa and the Sergeant's Village Community Center, as he called it, but some community centers across Barbados. Because it's not a parochial exercise. It's about incorporating everything we do in a national exercise. Because there are community centers all across Barbados that are in dire need of repairs. And we are saying as a government we will address it because bringing back the aesthetics to a community, brightening up a community is part of the reform that we need. Venezuela did it very successfully, put a lot of bright colors and paint. You will know as a doctor that when persons are depressed, you give them bright colored medicine. It has a psychological effect on communities. So we are going to brighten up the communities, change the community centers, repair them, so that they will be attractive to people, so that when they come to the center, they want to come in and be part of the programs that we have in there. That's what we are saying. But I want to give you that assurance, Member of Parliament for Christchurch West, that we are going to look at community centers across Barbados. We have the funds voted for repairs, and we are going to ask, because I'm making a clarion call to the private sector to come on board in the efforts as well. Because it's about partnerships. And you will often hear Prime Minister speak about partnerships throughout the length and breadth of her speeches. That is the only way we are going to take Barbados forward.
Thank you.
My follow-up question, Minister, has to do with the building blocks. And I heard you clearly that you have something planned for the bonnets, and I thank you for that. But I wanted to know more precisely, when is your end date? In other words, when do you expect those kiosks actually to be completed? I noticed you said you started some already. When do you expect the completion date?
Well, I know that you think that I wear many hats because medic comes to the rescue. But to answer a question like that, I would think I would have to have some type of training in construction and thing. And you may be more versed in that than me.
Somebody might be on
But I want to say to you that there's a prescribed period of 3 months that we have given the contractors. So I expect that project to be active within the next 3 months. I expect persons to be doing the hairdressing in your community, that the young girls on the blocks, because there are ladies on the blocks too, and we are not misogynists at the ministry. We believe that women has equal rights. I certainly believe that. And the women in the blocks must have a tangible stake as well. So the young girls who want to do cosmetics, we welcome them. The young ladies who want to do hairdressing and braiding, we welcome them. And in your constituency, member, there is a young lady who has a space allocated for her to do hair braiding. There are some who want to cook. There are those who would like to do the arts and the crafts. There's a plethora of of activities that will be involved in this block project that will give young persons the opportunity to earn their own dollar and make a betterment for themselves and by extension their families.
So that would be revolving, in other words?
In every single constituency.
No, I mean revolving as in you have a space for a young lady to do braiding.
There's
This is
space.
till she gets on her feet, and then somebody else uses the
No,
space,
no, no,
or
no,
she
no,
has
no,
it
no,
ad
no.
infinitum.
The space allocated for that young person
Mm-hmm.
will be allocate a permanent space
For her.
for her. Now, if she decides that that space is too small after she make enough money, and she want to have a space like where we are in today, and want to employ 100 people, we welcome that as well. Because
So-
that is the vision and aspiration of all our young people, and we should be able to buttress it.
Okay, so we have finite space so far.
Yes.
So what happens to the other young people that follow her? In other words, will space run out technically?
No. What has happened is that when we went and canvassed the blocks, because there were 3 stages to this block project. The first stage was the gathering of information, the data gathering, and the assessment. Where officers would have gone on the blocks, you would have saw me on TV as well, visiting every single block in this country. Then the second phase was identifying the areas that they are interested in, business areas that they're interested in. The third stage, obviously, is the building out stage. And building out, and then they have monitoring and evaluation. So persons who would have gone through the training, who would have shown the interest and the training, were then given the provisions to have the kiosk and the setup. And unfortunately, we can't do it for everybody because there's only limited space. But as we go, we start with 30 first.
Okay.
30 across each constituency. So every single constituency, including the constituency of St. Michael West, will have a block that will augment the needs of our young people. And then in the second phase, with the fiat, of course, of the cabinet, we'll be starting hopefully another thing. It's a continuous project. We are not going to drop like the proverbial bomb on our young people. We are saying that we are going to, at all corners, lift them up because we believe that that is the only way.
And my final question has to do with getting community groups going again. Because obviously, sometimes to get a community group going again, they would need some sort of financial assistance. They can't just decide they're going to get together. They're going to need some place to meet. They sometimes need stationery. Is your ministry giving any sort of support to be able to get community groups going again? Because I think we've missed the boat on some of our community groups.
Member of Parliament, Officer for Christchurch West, I think you're a little better at arithmetic than I am. But if you would refer to your estimates under operating expenses, you would see $260,000 or so being allocated to that exercise. And I would make sure that I keep your prayers in every single sense of the way. Because I think that all member of parliament, all and every single person who's serving constituencies should be a part of this whole exercise and should encourage persons in the community to come out and support this effort. So you will certainly be made fully aware of this exercise. And we hope that that you would encourage the good people of Christchurch West. Because I know that around the Christmas time, you always tell them that do good, and good will attend them. So you're saying to you now that you have the opportunity to do good to help form these community groups, and I'm sure that you would do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Honourable Member for St. James South.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and my greetings to the Honourable Minister and his hard-working team. I want to start off, first of all, by saying how much I want to thank you for the work that you've been doing. Indeed, this whole exercise, Madam Chair, from yesterday, looking at, we have a problem with the social fabric of our country, and our young people have been put in danger because of the tearing of that fabric. And what I heard yesterday under the Ministry of Education, the things that will be done to re-engage our young people, the supports that will be put in place to assist teachers, to assist children to find the niche that really works for them. I was very heartened by that because, like all Barbadians, I have been concerned about what has been happening to our young people. And then today, with the Ministry of Labor talking about the First Jobs Program, and now this afternoon, hearing what the Ministry of Youth is doing in terms of engaging our young people, I want to say a great big thank you to all three of you. And I will tell you why. I have had the pain as an MP moving in my constituency, young people coming out from school with no hope, nowhere to turn with their energy, no opportunities for work. And because of the economic pressures, the misery in the home made homes difficult to stay in. And they're outside looking for something to distract their minds and to use their energies on. And I have had parents in both of my middle and working class situations stop me and beg me. This was before I became an MP. Beg me, do something for these young people. Miss Husbands, you don't have a class. I don't care what it is. I don't care what the topic is. Just something to get him from off of the street because she feared for the life of her child if her child ended up in the wrong place. And it used to hurt my heart not to be able to give them a word of comfort as to what could be done for them. And since these activities have started across the country, I have felt the difference at the ground level in my own constituency. That Youth Advance Core program, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I have a question for you on it that I trust you'll be able to share with me. We've been able to get some of our people, some of our young people into that program. And I'm looking forward to the block entrepreneurship program that you're going to do. I was in admiration, that's the truth, on November 30th. Y'all had just started the Youth Advance program. I could not believe the discipline and the focus. They were not doing it dragging their feet and dragging their spirits. They were really engaged in the entire parade and paraded with pride. And I was delighted. That is the honest truth. I was delighted. How this has changed things in my constituency, as I'm driving through now, the young people, Sandra, 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 I want to get on to so, how can I get it? I want to do so. Come to the office, let's sit down and talk, let's make an appointment, and we'll talk it through. And what we've been doing is we've been working with them and channeling them to all the programs that are there. And I want to thank you very much for it, because when I looked at the problem, when I looked at what was happening to our young people, I was wondering, how are we going to pull them back? So my question, you have a lot of programs on the ground, but in particular, I want to hear about the Youth Advance Core. How are you incorporating values training into that program? I know that you mentioned the issue of managing money and so on, but how are you incorporating values training into this? Because this is what will steady our young people and keep them focused as they move forward in their lives. So I would appreciate getting some feedback on that. Thank you very much.
I want to thank you, Minister, and I share your sentiments, and I think that the good people of Christchurch, West Central, who lie geographically in the epicenter of Christchurch, would expose the same sentiments. We believe that this is the one single thing that will definitely make the paradigm that our young people need in terms that will make the paradigm in the lives of our young people. But to get into the actual programming, because there is a 6 weeks life skill component that seeks to engender the psychosocial needs of our young people. But to go into that aspect of the program, I would like to call Hardy Haynes, the director of the Youth Advanced Score, to have his say on that matter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Barbados Youth Advanced Score, as designed, is strategically mapped to ensure that we understand the psychosocial issues that confront our young people. So part of the process is to do what we call a pre-assessment. So when they come into the program, we do a pre-assessment where they are at, and then we put the program so that we can address those issues. So part of the training is civics, education, leadership, mentorship. We thought of the whole question of financial literacy so that we inculcate values that are life-lasting. And that is how we do it, to ensure that we give them the attributes that are necessary to prepare them for lifelong learning and living. And so the program is so structured that the first 6 weeks, you spend a lot of time understanding the young people, getting to understand self, understanding about team, about national identity, about things to build their psychosocial self-esteem development. So we use that opportunity while they're in residence to build out that component. After residential, one of the key things that we have done is to ensure that we want to find out what they really want to do. That is critical. Young people respond to things that they like. So part of the strategy is to ensure that we identify their interests, and then the programming component is built around their interests. And that is how we are able to develop them. To date, we have 367 persons already in the program, and they are in all aspects of development. So they're training, whether it is in animation, and when we do animation and courses, we also put in the entrepreneur side of it, so that you give them the technical skills, but you also give them the ability that if they want to go in that entrepreneurial area, they have the skills to develop. So our program is holistic in nature, and it seeks to prepare them for a lifelong learning and living. During the second year of training, we will focus on national projects. So those students who are at the Samuel Jessup Prescott Institute pursuing carpentry, joinery, masonry, and they have now to give back in the second year. So we identify national projects. They will use the skills that they have built so that they will give back to the community, because we are making an investment in young people, and therefore they have a responsibility also to give back. The old maxim, to whom much is given, much is expected.
Thank you very much. What I was particularly taken by was in your national projects. You'd mentioned the district emergency organization. I want to congratulate you on that, because I know that that organization has had challenges in getting new people to join and people to take responsibility for their community. Unfortunately, over the years, we've allowed our people to believe that government has to do everything and that people don't have a responsibility to take care of their community. And I firmly believe that that link, that moving that young person to a national project of giving back will begin to inculcate that spirit that used to be there in the Barbadian community. Nobody waited for the Sanitation Services Authority to come and clean up anywhere. I grew up in a Barbados where when I got up at 6 on mornings, my grandmother was outside sweeping the entire street, and by 7 o'clock, the entire area where we lived was clean and all the garbage put away. No garbage truck, nobody coming to do that. People in the community did it. So I appreciate that. Now, just the last question on that. That part hasn't started yet? Not yet.
But we have started what we call the training.
Okay.
So part of the skills training program is that they are doing swimming, rescue at sea, first aid, and those skills. So they would then, once they've completed those courses, they'll be able then to build the capacity of the district emergency organizations. So we will have now certified first aiders, certified lifesavers, first responders. So that's the
base training.
Right.
Okay, well, I'll be very happy to hear when you're reporting next year how they respond and how they latch on to the notion of volunteerism and giving back to the community through those efforts. I would like to hear how they're doing with that.
I just want to add that, and another aspect of that youth advance score that they mentioned was their help to inform the armed forces, the fire service, because a lot of the trainees have a desire to be firemen and fire ladies. Then what happens in terms of the defense force, the police force? That is why we are building a National Barbados Youth Advance Corps, to be able to support all aspects of Barbados. And I want to say, and I want to congratulate those young people who went in St. Lucie, and I hope the Member of Parliament for St. Lucie is hearing me clearly. I'm not a contortionist, so I can't look back and see if he's here. But I want him to know that these same Youth Advance trainees went in St. Lucie and was part of the tree planting exercise. In January, they planted about 200 or 300 trees as part of the tree planting exercise. And every single young person that planted that tree believe that, and when the cotton, they pick cotton, do you hear that? They pick cotton, they plant the trees. But the importance of planting trees, it may seem like a whimsical exercise, and persons may be laughing, but they do not understand the greenhouse effect and the global warming that we are faced with. Every single tree that is planted in Barbados is able to extract from the environment 48 pounds of carbon dioxide, which is a serious danger to our environment as we know it. So they are also helping to sustain the future of themselves and the generation, we call the next generation to come, and the unborn child too.
Thank you. Honourable Member for St. John.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Let me start by saying, Madam Chair, that from 1994 to 2008, the Ministry of Youth and Youth Affairs was the leading youth development program and ministry in the Caribbean. Subsequent to that, you had a situation where progressive programs that were run by the Barbados Labour Party government were jettisoned simply because they were run by the Barbados Labour Party government. Now, last year, there was the launch of a youth hotline. About 10 years ago, about 15 or so years ago, Madam Chair, that hotline was approved and was again gotten rid of because it was initiated by the youth commissioners. Project Oasis was dealing with men on the blocks. It was gotten rid of because it came under the Barbados Labour Party government. We had a ministry for 10 years that functioned like a communist state, was run by somebody that you would believe is little Hitler. And I am saying that it is good that now the ministry under the Honourable member is now breathing again some actual work in Barbados. And I have major concerns because I know a little bit about the ministry. And one of the good things under that communist state that came out is that one of the youth commissioners was forced to get involved in elective politics. So that was the one good thing that came from that. Madam Chair, I have some concerns that I will impact the young people in St. John. Word was mentioned about the youth entrepreneurship scheme. And this program involves some intensive training. And one of my concerns back then when we were in charge, and it is still a concern, I don't know if it was solved, it was rectified subsequent, is that this program will train persons for about 6 months or so. I'm speaking subject to correction. My question is, are we now attaching a certificate to this particular training that is weighted? I was ranting about this when I was in the corridors of youth work, and I'm still asking about it because I don't believe that we should be training persons for a period of 6 months and then giving them a certificate of participation. The youth commissioners are also doing a lot of projects at community level. And again, I'm asking if it is possible that those training programs can be twinned to one of the other learning institutions to ensure that those certificates carry some level of weight for entry-level employment. The other thing that I want to ask a question about is the sports training program, because every constituency, every year, there is a training program in sports, and we are looking to resuscitate groups at community level. And this, Madam Chair, is a captive group that we can use to turn into clubs at community level. The youth commissioners are there on the ground, and I believe that this is fertile, a really fertile opportunity for us to train and to move those from just into a group playing sports into a club at community level. When I was at that location, there was one project that was the main focus, and this was the Silver Hill Road Tennis Competition that was attracting over $75,000 of the project money every single year. So you could understand when I mentioned before that this organization was run like a communist state, you know what I mean. Now, in addition to that, earlier today, it was mentioned about training at the Vocational Training Board. And I'm asking what has become of a Bobcat that was purchased on the Project Oasis to facilitate training for youngsters who were on the blocks. Because I know that this Bobcat was purchased. And today it was mentioned that there's only one Bobcat at skills training. So we need to ask questions in terms of that, and I don't know if the minister would have answers for that. I may come back later with a couple more questions, but also the digital media project that saw youngsters from off the block entering CBC, starting their own business. What has become of that? And if we resuscitate that, can we again add some kind of credibility weighted certificate to those persons who pass through that program to seek employment? Thank you.
Thank you. That's something of a spirit. Thank you, Member of Parliament, for St. Lucie, St. Lucie and St. John sitting. For St. John, I know that you are not certainly a communist, but I will put you in the category of based on your pronouncement as a social democrat. But I commend you. That is a good comment. But I commend you for it. But I want to say to you that the community sports program has now been injected with new life. We have just had the finals of the community under 19 because I believe that football, one of the things that these youngsters are interested in, are involved in, is football. Almost every Barbadian is kick a ball by the time he's a toddler. And we know that. So we started the community under 19 football competition. It wasn't doctored by any way because my apartment for St. Michael North East, our team won. But it was placed across the length of breadth of this entire country in communities where we train young people. Because it's not only about kicking a football to see who scored the most goals. They had a life skill component to it, discipline. And as well, there was an HIV component because we understand the threat of sexual dyscrasias. We understand the importance of teaching young persons about chronic non-communicable illnesses. We understand the issues faced in the Ministry of Education as it relates to eating healthy and ensuring, because 1 out of every 3 young persons, and you can correct me, Madam Chair, suffer from obesity. 1 out of every 3. These are the things that we are faced with. So we can't be only talking about football in its physical sense, but there must be a figurative building out of all sports in Barbados. So that we, unlike the last 10 years, so that we won't be making sport at sports. Because that's exactly what happened. And we are saying that, and I want to tell Barbadians, with this new budget that we are presented today, there are funds in there to do, and I want to thank you, Charles, for mentioning the indigenous sport. Member of Parliament for St. John, the Social Democrat. I want to thank him for reminding me that in our ministry, we have now put funds for an inter-parish road tennis competition, which will start pretty soon. Because we believe that our indigenous sport must be put on the national level. So we are going to start in the community department, and we have already had a project, the project proposal, which I will share with my colleagues, but we are going to have a parish and inter-parish community road tennis competition in Barbados. And whether it is the member parent for St. Michael North East or St. Michael that one or Christchurch that event, irrespective, we are going to say, or St. James, as the member of parliament told me, we are going to allow Barbadians to partake in the sport that we believe is close to us. We believe that it is indigenous to us. So this is something that I'm asking member of parliament to look forward to, because we are going to roll it out in the next couple of months. To the other parts of the question, though, I'll give way to my other August guest. Certainly, the acting manager of the YES department, he can probably come and answer the question as it relates to the training and the qualification and certification for his program, which is I suspect is the CVQ training that the member of parliament for St. John is asking about.
Ryan Mosley, the acting manager of the Youth Entrepreneurship Scheme. In response to the Member of Parliament for St. John, the YES Entrepreneurial Development Training Program has evolved and is continuing to evolve. We have shortened the program because we did recognize that the time period that young persons invested in the program was equivalent to almost a diploma at BIMAC. It was 6 months, 3 evenings a week for 3 hours, and that time equates to well over 280 contact hours. So the program has been changed, the program has been reduced. We have decided what are the priority areas, and we have sought to augment the shortened program, which runs now for about 3.5 months, with specialized workshops. What we decided that after persons graduated from the program, we were going to give them an opportunity to work and conduct the necessary research into their business of choice. And once they have completed what we use now, we call a business model canvas methodology, we allow them to populate the components of that business model canvas, and we're going to bring them back together for a specialized 1-week session where we allow them to basically pitch to our panel and receive then feedback on the actual business proposal. We are hoping that at the end of this exercise that they will be ready to move to the next level, whether that being going to the Barbados Trust loans for the $5,000 financial injection, or if they may need to probably go to one of the other institutions within the entrepreneurial ecosystem under the Small Business Development Center to receive specialized training, or if they're at the stage where they already have businesses started, if they may be ready for export, like export awareness, we can refer them internally within the SBDC to get that specialized training. With regards to the certification, there is a move to certify the program, because we do admit that the time invested by our young people requires something more than a certificate of participation. There is a move on, I think facilitated by the director of the Barbados Youth Advanced Corps. They would have started the process a couple of years back to get the programs accredited through the BA, the Barbados Accreditation Council, and that process will then, all of the programs under the Division of Youth and by extension the Ministry of Youth and Community Empowerment, then will follow on from that process to get all of these programs within the ministry accredited to the level where they can be afforded the CVQ qualification.
I would now ask the director to answer the other part of the question.
Good afternoon, Honourable Madam Chair, honourable members. I just want to respond to Cliviston Hunt, Director of Youth Affairs. Just want to respond to the question by the member for St. John in relation to our engagement with the TVET Council in relation to our training. One of the things that Mr. Mosley pointed out, which I want to expand on, is the fact that the ministry has engaged the TVET Council in relation to providing certification for our training. We have identified the Barbados Youth Advanced Corps, their center as the center for training. We have actually started to have some of our staff trained to be assessors, to be qualified assessors for the training, as well as we have sought to ensure that we put in place the resources, the physical resources, because as part of the certification process, you have to make sure that you have the adequate resources for the actual certification and for the assessment. In relation to the Bobcat, I think in 2002, the ministry would have sent that Bobcat on to the TVET Council for training, the National Training Board, my apologies, for training of young persons who were interested in doing training in Bobcat. And that Bobcat remains with the National Training Board. In relation to our digital media program, this is one of the more vibrant programs that we have in the ministry for our young people. It is a program that actually teaches our skills for the future for our young people. And it is one that has exceeded the expectations of even the staff in the ministry in relation to the numbers of persons who continue to be trained in that program. And we have programs currently. We have 2 programs which are ongoing now with a total of over 50 persons who are actually enrolled in the program. Thank you.
Just a follow-up question, Madam Chair. In relation to a project that was within the ministry called Building Linkages, I'm wondering if, through the minister, the director can speak to that. I'm also aware that some of the MPs that are here in the room today are not serviced by youth commissioners. Can that question be answered in relation to what will happen to satisfy the youth commissioner population as it relates to having every single MP with a youth commissioner attached to their particular locale? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Honourable Member, for the question. I'm going to take the second one first in relation to the staffing. As you're aware, the components, the number of commissioners that we had are 32 when the department was first set up. However, in the process of time, with attrition, with persons resigning and so on, the numbers has now moved down to about 24, and we are actively looking at how we go about filling the posts and getting the actual funding to be able to fill the post of youth commissioner. In relation to the, what was the question again? Oh, the building linkages program. The building linkage programs was one that had a number of components, and the minister would have responded to one which would have spoken to one which was the actual one that would involve trying to set up a national hotline. And the fact of the matter was that a paper was sent to the cabinet in relation to the hotline. And what happened was that we also had information that one of the private sector agencies, one of the NGOs, was actually setting up a hotline. And the ministry deferred actual setting up the hotline to allow the NGO to set up that hotline. We had challenges in relation to getting the hardware for the hotline, as well as the actual training for our staff at the time, as well as being able to man the hotline adequately. And so we felt that once the NGO was in a position to put the hotline in place, that I think that was the better option to pursue, given the limitations that we had. Thank you.
Thank you. Honourable Member for St. James Central.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. My question really is for either of the 3 people at the at the table. Mr. Minister, I consider you to be a friend. You are obviously a colleague. You are a neighbor. You must forgive me if I am very candid with you. Let me start by saying that I think you are doing an excellent job in your ministry. But there are certain matters about which your ministry has responsibility that I find to be grievously difficult to bear as a member of Parliament for a constituency. And you will forgive me, therefore, if I do not indulge in the insipidity of banal platitudes. The reality is, Minister, that the question that was just asked by the Honourable Member for St. John speaks to some of the historical imbalance that the folks of St. James Central have had to endure from the time there was a constituency called St. James Central. From its very inception, St. James Central has never benefited from having a single youth commissioner. St. James Central was created in 2003. St. Philip West at the same time, but I'm not going to speak for St. Philip West. I am not concerned about them at this stage. The reality is that between 2003 to 2020, we have not had a single youth commissioner to call our own. What we endure is a hodgepodge relationship, so that people with various levels of commitment to one district are asked to represent a part of the constituency. People with different approaches, different relationships with the community, obviously a different type of energy towards programs. It is a difficult situation, Minister, to endure, and quite frankly, the answer that was just given to the Honourable Member for St. John about the staffing situation and it declining to 24 does not offer us anything but cold comfort, because what we need to be hearing is how we can have, finally, that which other people have enjoyed from inception. It really fosters a form of social discohesion within a constituency when a priority for the youth commissioner is the constituency to which they are properly assigned. And I don't wish to be invidious and call the name of any commissioner, but you would understand that if there's a commissioner who is assigned to a particular constituency and there's a little spillover that he got to deal with over in St. James Central, his first priority is the constituency he's assigned to. So I have a trilogy of that problem existing, Minister. And it is a difficult pill to swallow. At the same time, there's also, again, a historical imbalance in that my constituency has never benefited from a single community development center. And the question that is asked of me is, how is it, Minister, that you are elected to Parliament 3 and 4 times, but we can't get a single community center? When other constituencies, as we heard said only a few minutes ago by another honourable member in this place, enjoy the luxury of 2 and sometimes 3. And that also lends itself to a feeling of alienation and inexplicable estrangement. Why is it that we stand and are treated as though we are people askance, looking up at the pearly gates over yonder, at the level of representation that we cannot get in St. James Central? Are we not people too? And that, sir, is a question that is a burning philosophical one. I think it has to be answered, and it has to be answered within the context of fairness and equity and social justice. And I invite you, sir, to comment.
I want to thank you, Honourable Member, for your expression of dissatisfaction and dismay with the way how your constituency is certainly being looked after. I want to say to you that not only St. James, but we are trying, because there are 30 constituencies. And in an ideal world, we would love to have a youth commissioner, as you rightfully say, who has an inherent knowledge of the entire constituency, whether socially, politically, economically, whatever, so that they will have a sense of engagement. We understand you, and I appreciate your comment. But this is a conversation certainly that will be taken at the level of the civil service, and we have already made requests for additional posts, and I will let my permanent secretary speak to that in more detail. But Minister, you are absolutely correct, because in the same way I would raise my vocal cords on behalf of the people of Christchurch West, I am certain that you would, for your constituents who have reposed confidence in you for the better part of 15 years going. So I welcome your expression of discontent, and certainly this is something that we would have to look at, because there are 6 other members who I'm sure feel the same way. As it relates to the community center, again, that is something that the permanent secretary will definitely attempt to answer on on the behalf of the ministry, but I want to give you the calm assurance today that we will look with apace at the situation as it relates to having not only youth commissioners, but I believe that community aid should be in every single constituency. Over to you. Yeah.
Honourable Member for St. Michael's Southeast. Sorry. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wish to answer two questions in one response, but the question which was raised by the Honourable Member for St. John in relation to having a youth commissioner placed in each constituency, and also the concern raised by the Honourable Member to my left, St. James Central. Yes. Now, let me just answer the last part first, so in terms of community centers. The Chief Community Development Officer may understand the area better than I do, because I'm not too sure exactly where St. James Central lies with respect to St. James North and St. James South. But obviously it means that we would have to be looking at the areas, the populations, and looking at places, safe places where we could look at having a community center for St. James Central, or in St. James Central. In relation to the youth commissioners, though, when I joined the ministry just over a year ago, I was told that we only had 24 officers. Within a few weeks, we had lost one. And then within another 6 months, we lost another one. So it means that we are now down to about 22 officers. 3 of them are temporary officers. And it means that we have some officers who are now doubling up, basically, to try to service the entire country. We are, however, relooking and reviewing the youth commissioner posts, Youth Commissioner 1, 2, and 3, and also looking at the best terms and conditions and the best structure for the posts. Right now, they're all permanent or temporary officers. We are looking at the possibility of bringing on persons on short-term, probably a period of 3 years, short-term contracts to work with the ministry. And we have gotten the blessing so far, in principle, from the Ministry of the Public Service that we shouldn't be just looking at qualifications, but we should be looking at competencies, and I'll add also abilities. Competencies and abilities are the right skill sets as well to be able to work with young people. So we are working on that. We will have to work with the Ministry of the Public Services, both the human resource staffing and policy section, as well as the people resourcing and staffing and compliance, to look at how best we can now redeploy or reallocate some of the existing resources, and also look at the kinds of resources we need to bring in to the youth development program to ensure that we have youth commissioners that can very competently perform the roles which are required in each of the constituencies. I think one of the things that must be understood is that youth commissioners don't just work with the youth development program. The work that these officers have to do on the ground also filters into other programs under the Ministry of Youth and Community Empowerment. So this, to the two members, is a work in progress, because we can't just, we have not had the resources to bring in additional officers. We've had monies reduced under our personal emoluments to bring in additional officers, but at the same time, we need to look at the post and restructuring that particular youth development program to ensure that we have the right people, so that we can have 30 competent, skilled, and able youth commissioners on the ground.
What I would do, Minister, is allow the community, the Chief Community Officer, to be able to answer to your question in a way that speaks to their geographical place of centers, so that we can understand fully why the centers are placed in the areas that they are placed, and the captive audience that they serve. So I would let the Chief Community Officer speak to that.
I'm going to depend on my memory really, because when I joined the Community Development Department, most of the centers were already constructed, and this was in 2007. In 2002, my understanding is that the government of the day embarked on a program to transform community centers into resource centers and to develop communities, establish resource centers. Resource centers in that these would have been buildings where community technology programs would be provided. This is community training and information and community technology that would be brought to the public. So it would have been a process where the regular community centers were transformed into community centers, and the new resource centers, and new resource centers would be built. In my time, during my time, we have not built any no new community centers were built. I'm sorry, I cannot explain the reasoning behind the locations of community centers, because as Minister, the Honourable Minister Ford aptly said, there are some parishes or some constituencies where you may find more than one community or resource center, and there are others, like St. Thomas comes to mind, where there is no community center. There are areas in Christchurch too that have suffered significantly from the lack of community centers, like parts of Christchurch, where there was a community center at Oystons, and that had to be closed because it was part of a building that was not its own, it was part of another building. Right now, the ministry, we've managed to acquire through the Ministry of Housing and Lands a center at Sears Court, a new community center at Sears Court, which will help to cater for that area constituencies of Christchurch East and Christchurch West and Christchurch South, the surrounding areas.
What I can do, if I can speak to this issue, in the same way that when we were told, given the unfortunate news that we could not have used certain plants in the schools during our summer camp program, we seek to put other measures in place, a contingency plan. I am saying that gone are the days now where we just have to look at a physical building and call it a community center. I think that we have to reach out, for instance, in your area, Minister, if there's a church who is willing to allow us to augment programs in the same way in this area that they did in the summer camp program. I think that's the way we have to start going. If the Minister of Education, I know she's shaking her head in approval, would allow us to use a school on evenings, maybe in your constituency, Minister, where because we have the resource in terms of program, so that we could have programs more so than the physical space being made accessible to each and every single constituent. I think that that's where we will have to look at it in that way to find a resolution that really makes sense, because as much as we put in buildings, the importance is not so much the buildings, it is having programs that are reaching the people in the constituency. So I think that is something, Minister, we can look at that will help bring some a level of ease to the situation. And I think that right now, that may be the most sensible thing. This is one of the things about Barbados is that we must operate with common sense. And I think that this is a situation where it requires good old common sense. And I would like to revisit it as Minister and certainly have the conversation with the churches within your area and certainly Ministry of Education.
Ma'am, if I may, ma'am, I believe I have the right to have a follow-up question. First of all, let me preface my remark by saying that I endorse that which the minister has said by way of a suggestion as part of the way forward. It makes perfect sense to me. Granny used to say, where there is a will, there is a way. And I believe, Minister, that you have the will. I certainly do. And I know that we can find a way. In fact, right now I can tell you that there is, to my mind, immediately at least one church which has, I believe, the appropriate facilities to be able to accommodate such a suggestion. With regard to the question of the youth commissioners, again, if we were called upon in St. James Central to be able to make a suggestion as to how you can go about your staffing, and I gather from the Permanent Secretary's observation and intervention that you have different grades and you're looking at refreshing the way in which you go about it, to let us become a little bit less academic and a little bit more practical, then certainly in my constituency, you will have suggestions before you. But I think that what we have suffered from, if I can be candid, ma'am, is that there's a lot of commitment to the academic aspect of this thing and too little to the practical, heartfelt commitment and dedication of people on the ground who simply want to work with young people to help make them a little bit better off. That's my 2 cents worth on that. I want to also make a suggestion to you, Minister, because I see you as a friend and a hard-working friend. You did tremendous work, Minister, when you came to a number of constituencies by way of a tour and spoke to young people and gave them a ray of hope with regard to the Block Entrepreneurial Program. I believe, through no fault of yours personally, there has been a considerable effluxion or passage of time between that visit and today. I know that where the grass is growing, sometimes the horse is starving. But if I look into the eyes of those young people in my constituency who you spoke to, I see them thinking and hear them asking the question, was it all about the appearance as opposed to the substance of finding solutions? It would be an unfair question to ask of you personally, Minister, because I know your heart is not there. I know your heart is in trying to get the solution. But you need, sir, to be mindful of the fact that there has to be a connection with some of these people because they were led to believe that there was assistance on the way. And 1 year later, that has not yet materialized. And that will ultimately lead to despair and more alienation and more frustration and all the things that you're fighting not to happen. And I want to say I am prepared to walk with you in that regard in my constituency. But I suspect that there are other constituencies where the same problem will exist.
Minister, I want to thank you once again and to say to you that moving from idea to the building up of the physical structures has been an arduous exercise, to say the least. It would have involved all the players from the Ministry of Housing to the Ministry of the Environment to Town and Country Planning, Environmental Protection Agencies. We would have had extensive discussion, plans being put in place. Currently we have about 8 plans at the time. About 8 plans. I can't tell you right now if your constituency would have to look at them is in the plans that are to be approved. But what I want to tell you is that the project definitely will come central to St. James. It will come to every single constituency in Barbados, and rest assured I will not be sleeping comfortable unless this project becomes a reality in Barbados. So I can only give you that calm assurance. But we had some stumbling blocks in terms of the requirements from those different agencies. But I want to tell you that we have 8 plans in the Town and Country Planning Department right now, and we're waiting on their blessings and approval. And hopefully, the Central of St. James will be part of that discussion.
Honourable Member for St. Michael Southeast.
Thank you, Madam Chair. About the year 1999, a Jamaican artist by the name of Bounty Killer brought out a song called Look Into My Eyes, Tell Me What You See. Can you feel my pain? Am I your enemy? And for those of you who are in that particular age group who are probably singing along with me right now, would know that that song spoke to conditions in Jamaican society, which for persons in what we would refer the most vulnerable communities, in particular in Kingston, was a reflection of what was transpiring in Jamaican society at that time. There was a lot of criticism in Jamaica for the song because many people responded negatively with the belief that the song was even advocating violence, as Bounty Killer spoke about persons resorting to the use of the gun in an effort to draw attention to what was really transpiring in the ghetto communities of Kingston. I had the opportunity to go back to Jamaica a few weeks ago for a meeting with the University of West Indies, and 20 years later, Bounty Killer was making statements on television with respect to the fact that the government of Jamaica was now engaged in what they refer to as SOEs, state of emergencies. He called on the government yet again to invest in communities, to invest in young people. And I just wanted to place this in perspective because 10 million more to the Ministry of Youth sounds like a lot of money. But in the context of what, through the eyes of an artist, he was able to highlight back then, and the fact that perhaps it may have been ignored, I think that this administration has done well in responding on coming to office, and certainly through the Ministry of Youth, to what we see, and particularly the honourable member next to me, the Honourable Attorney General, who constantly sees the issue of youth crime, and in particular violence emanating in our society on a rather daily basis, and a desire by this administration to put as many social programs in place for this country to stem the decline in the crime in Barbados. Minister, I know you are totally energized about this ministry, and I want to just commend you and your staff for the efforts that are being made to help us roll out a number of the programs as we seek to address these issues. I know that the programs are not, for the most part, only targeted at persons who are at risk, but they are wide-ranging in terms of the individuals who are being targeted, and I certainly appreciate that. But I started with the Bounty Killer song because I think that we are all sensitive to the fact that right now we have to do a lot more in terms of people who are at risk. And I know you started with doing the block project. I've benefited from the Parkinson block, what would have been referred to as the dungeon previously, where I have seen a transformation from the time we broke ground to within the last few days, where that particular project is underway. There are excited young people who have gone through the training program who are just anxiously awaiting the opportunity to turn key into a kiosk and to be able to, for the first time, be able to call a place their home and their site for entrepreneurial activity. And on behalf of the residents of St. Michael Southeast, I really want to say thank you to all of you who have been engaged in that process. It may seem simple, but it has been a journey of empowerment for young people who I believe the same Bounty Killer may have referred to as believing that people did not care, that there was no hope, there was nothing that was for them. And I don't think that the true impact is even at this stage understood. And it will perhaps only be fully understood when all of the projects have been built out from this first phase. And certainly I hope that we have the funds to be able to complete across all of the communities across Barbados to really truly make that impact. I really don't have that many questions because in relation to this area and certainly community development and youth affairs, I have perhaps nagged all of the officers who sit with you in relation to, and they're smiling, in relation to the constituency of St. Michael Southeast, even from opposition. I continue to nag them because having the largest housing area in the country, it requires me to nag because I have to make sure that I stem the frustrations of people as well, and to ensure that there are opportunities for them to participate in some form of activity. Granted, there is a view that we can't do everything in school. School hours are only for a certain number during a day. And on afternoons, you have a situation where a number of community centers, they're not always activities, or they're not open all the time, and certainly on weekends. And I know this is an issue that I've raised with community development before, because I believe that we have to move to a position now where, rather than an officer being on site from 9 o'clock in the morning until 4 o'clock or 4:30, you have to accept that in very densely populated communities, people come home on evenings, little children are coming home, and they need somewhere to go. And while we may want to believe that students should be in bed by 8 o'clock, in the community that I represent, students are raging through the community well after 8 into wee hours of the night. It therefore means that, as the honourable member who last spoke indicated from St. James Central, that we have to have a shift in thinking as to how, as a department, you approach communities. And it will require that, whether it is that you have to start to change the hours that people are working, or the approach generally in terms of other activities which are happening on the weekend, I think it requires a reinvigorated way of looking at how you approach community activities, and being able to ensure that as we develop the community groups, that you give the opportunities for persons to be able to participate. As I said, I have no issues in terms of St. Michael's Southeast, because I am always on your case, and I'm always texting the minister to try to find out a way for how we can deploy programs in the community. And I have had the responses that I believe are reasonable and necessary thus far. But I do want you to continue to explore ways in being able to make these facilities open as much as possible. One of the questions I have for you, however, is in relation to the maintenance of the centers. I know you indicated you're going to start to look at the renovations for some of the existing facilities. But just as you do, or just as I have come to have some concerns in relation to education and the maintenance of our plans, I would want to know what programs are in place and highlighted in perhaps these estimates in relation to preventative maintenance. And I'm not talking about repairing an entire building. I'm talking about simple things like changing out the toilet facilities, changing a light fixture, because I have found in the past that the process for getting these things changed has been quite long and lengthy. And I would want to know what are the steps that are being taken by the ministry to put the preventative maintenance programs in place as well.
I want to thank you, Minister, for your observation and question, and certainly your reference to and certainly your reference to Bonte, but within the last 10 years, young people were singing another song too. And there's one by Bob Marley, when they say that them belly full, but we starving. Them belly full, D-E-M, them belly full, but we starving. Other persons were able to live off the biggest, largest, but the young people starving. They were suffering from the biggest and the highest form of disillusionment ever imagined in this country. But them belly full. Bob Marley sang it. But we starving. That's what they said. They told me that when they went on every single block in Barbados. Over the last 10 years, them belly full, but we starving. And I'm saying to you, that is really the response in terms of the building block. To your other point now about the community centers. As I said before, the community management committees, having those in place will seek to solve the problem as it relates to long opening hours. Because after the community aides go home, they'll be responsible for managing the centers, along with identifying in a very proactive way problems and concerns, because we are asking the community, the artisans within the community, to be able to come and be part of the repair mechanism. That's what we are saying. So the carpenters and masons who are in communities, they will be identified by the same management committees. And so that before the problem becomes one where there is no turning back, we'll be able to put a system, an action plan, not a plan of action like the last 10 years is the difference, an action plan in place for repairs, maintenance, and so that these issues won't exist. So the real answer to these problems is to have a community management committee, an active, robust community management committee in place. And that is why he's saying that to you, Minister, this is the road that we in the ministry will take, and I'm sure once it is given the energy and the sinew that it deserves, it will redefine the way how we do business in the communities and in community centers. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. The only other area that I would like to raise is in relation to the music programs and ensuring that we have a creative arts program that extends beyond the schools. Obviously, we're doing our part to ensure that we have at least the minimum set of instruments within each of the various institutions. But obviously, community centers, again, are places where after hours and certainly going into the weekend, that I believe students should have the opportunity to be involved in those creative arts programs as well. The other thing is that we need to look, I think, a little bit deeper at the programs that you have in relation to technology and to robotics. Obviously, we've invested quite heavily in that area, and I believe the community centers can also be utilized for that purpose. On the earlier point, as it relates to the use of the schools as centers, I fully support the move towards the facilitation of the schools for the use by community development and the Ministry of Youth. I think when we did the summer camp program this year, you were able to utilize a number of schools, but at the same time we had to conduct repairs. And I think once people understand that schools still have to be ready for the start of the new school term, then you would appreciate that sometimes we have to obviously close off some facilities in order to be able to accommodate it for you the following year. So the hope is that this year you will be able to utilize a bit more than you did last year. But in terms of us being able to use the schools for adult training and certainly for after-school programs, I would encourage you to just write to the ministry and let us try to finalize where we can go as far as that is concerned. I didn't hear you speak much on the Sea Cadets program and obviously the partnership with the Princess Trust. But perhaps you can just speak to those quickly in terms of other programs that are existing to be able to support programs for the youth in the country.
This may cause this August chamber a little more than 180 seconds or so. To speak to your issue, well, we have a Youth Achieving Results project that is undertaken at the level of, in conjunction, of course, with the National Cultural Foundation, because we understand that if we want to succeed as a government, we cannot operate as silos. It is not about thumping your chest. It's not about self-praise and self-aggrandizement. So we have partnered, certainly, with the Ministry of Creative Economy, Culture and Sports, in a way to build out the creative arts and the visual arts. The program catered to about 100 or so students this year, and it's an ongoing program. So I think that is something that we also partner with the Ministry of Education, because we understand, as you say, that technology and science is the way how our young people are fixed, and they have a special affinity for these disciplines. And so I agree with you with 100% about ensuring that we find a space for those things. You also asked the question about the other programs that we are doing in the ministry. along with the Prince Trust. There's a program that has the blessings of the Prince Trust that our Prime Minister would have allocated earlier 1.3 or 1.5, $1.5 million. We were given about 400,000 or so, 332,000 to spend in our Get Into and our Get Heard program. This program is basically one which allows young persons to explore the benefits of being employed from the curriculum vitae until employment. They are exposed to all the rudiments of job interviews. They go through all the training for a period of 6 weeks or so. And then employers, and I want to thank Corporate Barbados for coming on board, they come to the ministry and interview persons with the single focus to provide employment for those persons. I want to say that so far, in partnership with the Prince Trust, we would have had the better part of 185 students passing through the program, with 102 persons being employed as I speak here. That is the level of success. So that program is one that I think that can augur well for this entire country. And it can help infuse what Minister Jordan is doing with the Job Start Plus program. Because it is our mandate to make sure that we find employment for these young people. The devil find work for either hands. It's simple as that. And there is also in our program the new, as I said, the Youth Prison Fellowship Project, which will allow our entrepreneurial department to combine its efforts with what's happening with the prison fellowship. I think that is something that is very important for our country going forward. As I said earlier, with the high levels of recidivism that we are faced with as a country, there's a computer technological program that is run at all the resource centers in Barbados, allowing persons to have that computer experience. And I was happy to open a course in St. Thomas, at St. Thomas Parish Church with the Member of Parliament for St. Thomas, where we had a nonagenarian of a lady, a beautiful nonagenarian of a lady, 92 years old, doing the computer program. And it blessed my heart in a special way. So I'm saying that we are catering to the young and the elderly, because the moral test of any government is how we treat the young, the elderly, and the disabled community. And we as a government, and certainly through my ministry, we commit and recommit to ensuring that this government pass that moral litmus test. So we have the community technological program that is run throughout the length and breadth of this country once the resource centers are available. There is the Safe Haven project, which allows young people who, for whatever reason, after they leave school and they don't have that parental guidance and that parental support that they would need, probably maybe physical as well, in terms of having a home to go into between a period of time, for whatever reason. We are, through our ministry, we have created a program called the Safe Haven, where community practitioners come on evenings in community centers and teach basic life skills, from cyberbullying, conflict resolution, resilience, you name it. Helping with the homework, because it's a homework project. And we believe that every single, and there's one at your constituency, Member of Parliament for St. Michael Southeast, because we believe that it takes all hands on deck as it relates to the fight to help our young people. So the Safe Haven project is one that we will be rolling out across, again, the entire geographic space of Barbados.
Thank you. Well done.
I think I would just want to add, not a question, but I just want to add to you that, and to the members in your ministry, that what the members I think that have spoken before me are really trying to point out is that we're in a very unique situation in Barbados right now. This, for the first time, you have a situation where we won 30 seats. We're still responsible for 30 seats. And we're in a peculiar situation where it is not a case of we wanting resources to go to only those seats which have been held by Barbados Labour Party or Democratic Labour Party members. We would like us to be in a position where we look at the country as a whole and we make a determination in terms of where should resources go based on the greatest needs. Because it should not be that in another 5 years we are hearing any member of parliament in this house coming back and saying that they do not have X or they do not have Y. And I think the data, the assessment needs to be taken now of where we are, what is the state of play across the country, and where are our pockets in terms of criminal activity, in terms of deviance, and all of these social issues, so that as a community development department, your approach is more strategic, that we never find ourselves in a situation where we have an imbalance in terms of resources being applied. All right, thank you. But again, great job that you've been doing so far.
I want to thank you. I want to give you the assurance that just like good old Santa Claus, we will bring good tidings of great joy to every single part of Barbados, including the Member of Parliament for St. Michael West.
Thank you. Members, we have about 20 minutes. I'm going to ask you to limit your question and comment to one and limit it to 3 minutes for your reply and question, unless you want to save it for next week. We continue with the Honourable Member for St. Michael South Central.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to the Minister. Minister, your ministry has is different in its orientation from a lot of the others, in that it is not necessarily a productive sector ministry. It is not a social investment sector ministry like health and wellness or education. It is a ministry that addresses a whole part of a person's life cycle. So it means that you have really to deal with a lot of cross-cutting issues. Many of them share with the Ministry of Education. So I will be, on the advice of the chair, I'll try to be as succinct as I can with my question. And it is really about how you are working, how you and the ministry are able to work across ministries and across sectors to make sure that these issues, because you have responsibility for every issue as it affects young people. And that's always a concern that I've had with a ministry such as this. So how are you able, for example, to deal with some of the emerging issues with young people's use of controlled substances? How are you engaging with the NCSA, the Ministry of Education, across sectors and spheres of influence to address this? But also, how are you working with other frontline officers? You have youth commissioners, you have community development officers, you have social workers. I really want us to start seeing us as a government move towards case management approaches across areas so that we are sure that people are covered. So perhaps you can say a little bit about how you are using structure to address some of these issues.
I want to thank you, Minister, for understanding the responsibility of this young Minister of Youth. And certainly you're correct when you say that I have a lot of responsibilities in a way that dissects across the length and breadth of this country and across every demographic. Certainly to whom much is given, much is expected. I want to say to you, we are faced, and you're correct, because it's about having the synergies that can maximize our efforts. And I want to say to you that we have partnered with the Ministry of Labour as it relates to the Job Start Plus program. We've had continuous partnerships with education, even as it relates now to the superannuated students with our Youth Advance Score. We've had relationships with I mean, even your department as it relates to the building blocks project. But you hit an interesting point when you spoke to me just now about the new drugs that is certainly affecting this country. And I want to have a little time to speak to Barbados about this. The Prime Minister and her wisdom have given me the responsibility to partner with the National Council of Substance Abuse, to partner, of course, with the Drug Service, the Ministry of Health, the Immigration Department through the Ministry of Home Affairs, and obviously the Attorney General's Office. We are now faced, and I want Barbadians to hear me. If you think the existential threat of global warming was bad, we are faced in Barbados with the perfect political, social, and economic storm as it relates to purple drank and lean, the new drug now being used by our young people. And I'm making a plea today to our young people to take stock and stop the nonsense. The dangerous effect of these combinations that they are using with the cough syrups, the Jolly Ranchers, and they want parents to be able to recognize these strains at home because it is as serious as almost every single thing. It is just as serious as you see your child walking around with a gun in hand. And when they take them in combination with methamphetamines, that is why we have to work with the Immigration Department, because we have to stop these things from coming through our borders. And we have to educate our young people because the dangers and harm involved in using these products. Believe you me, Madam Chair, we have young persons using this combination who, after an episode, cannot tell you what they did the night before. And because of the heat created as an adverse effect of these drugs, they're taking off their clothes. Now, pray tell me how this could be seen as normal behavior, as the accepted norm in Barbados. We have incidents where young persons take up a gun and shoot all up in the air in the night after using this combination. But most importantly is what it does to your health as it relates to destroying all the internal organs, especially those protective jewels that men guard so protectively. The ability to reproduce. These drugs are causing a serious effect on the lives of our young people. And it is my call today to tell parents to be on guard. And we are going to lead in this ministry an educational program, utilizing the youth commissioners and community aides in community to get the message out. Because Barbados is being threatened by this new culture. And the thing about it is that it's culture that has been adopted out of a North American rap culture, where a rapper by the name of Pimp C, imagine it, can have that influence on Barbadians, like where Barbadian young men as old as 13 years old taking drugs to destroy their body. I want to give you the assurance, Minister, that we will be working with all agencies, and I will be leading the charge to ensure that this becomes a thing of the past and that young persons recognize that all they're doing is destroying themselves and their families. And I want parents out there. I also want all the teachers and all adults to make sure that they provide the guidance necessary. I will speak to this more lucidly at another stage, but it's a great concern, and it's something that we will do everything in our power to eradicate from our culture and our society.
Thank you. Honourable Member for St. Michael East.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Minister, thank you, Madam Chair. Minister, I want to congratulate you for the work you have done within the last 2 years. as Minister of Youth Affairs. You have purged the institution, the agency, of a diabolical spirit. I should not even say a diabolical spirit and a form of sulfur and acid that polluted the Youth Affairs Department for the 10 years prior to 2018. I say that because I have been a victim of the community development program. I end up standing in the dock. I end up facing policemen harassing me morning, noon, and night in that department. And my community, as a consequence of my representation and the manner in which the partisan policy was executed, I end up fully ostracized as a result of the manner in which that particular minister then carried out the responsibilities, and through his dictates, it filtered down, and no officer dare. They stripped me and that community of funding and assistance, and I had to survive 10 years of struggle to keep a grassroots organization above water because of what occurred in there. So it's a cleansing exercise that occurred, even if you are not conscious of what you have done. I am happy to share with you that I feel a sense of reconnection with the Community Development Department. And I also want to urge you, because I know the time is short, it's not a question or you can interpret it, because somebody don't know the difference in a question and a comment. But you can interpret it. But it is important that you change direction and continue on the path that you're going. The grassroots organizations in St. Michael's East and Southeast and a few Pan-Africanist organizations, the evidence, empirical evidence there is on the paper. When we attempted to work with the department on the program, what do you used to call it though? The program is to keep you on the vacation, they carry all the money and things, right? With the summer camps. They deliberately deleted certain names from the list, and they could not participate in the program. So I want to thank the minister for giving us that kind of reconnection, and I want him to understand that the ministry must not apply a top-down approach. I've been hearing about a lot of names and labels that sound very romantic, but the reality is I think that the ministry has to see itself as a facilitator. If you're saying that creativity exists in the community, and the community throw up its own leaders, and the community also come up with its own innovative concepts, then what the community don't have sometimes is the finance and the guidance that might be required from the Community Development Department. But when it comes to the administrative bodies within the community groups, these are people who live it every day in the community and know what are the best programs that the community can relate to. So it is. I want to also thank you, I don't want to go too far now, but I want to also thank you for what you did in the Ivy for the people in the Ivy. But it stemmed from the Ivy itself. So the actual concepts that gave rise to the program, you facilitate the program. But it's because they had young people with talent, had skills, and they want an opportunity, but they don't have a dollar to buy a concrete block. And what the department is doing is building the necessary units within the department, within the community, so that you can produce a barber, a hairdresser, a cosmetologist, whatever, inside the community there. So to some extent, you have to take the credit as a facilitator, but don't get too inflated and believe that the credit must go to the department itself, because the department can dog dance when it wants to dog dance. It depends on the leadership of the departments in government. Sometimes officers get scared of what the leadership is likely to accept as correct and what is not correct. And that is the reality. Sometimes we try to put a white cloud over everything. But the reality is that I've seen officers function well, and then all of a sudden a demon arises. And the demon then forced the department to go in a direction that it really should not go in. As a matter of fact, I want to sing the song Redemption, sung by Barbados, for the entire department itself. So thank you.
Thank you, Minister. As you said, you don't know if it's a question or comment, so I would just say thank you, and I appreciate everything you said.
Honourable Member for St. George North.
Madam Chair, I just want to ask and thank the Minister. I don't want to speak very long, but I want to thank the Minister for what he has done to transform this ministry. And I want to say from the outset, if there's one ministry you can see a transformation, is this ministry. And I saw it last, I think it was November, when you brought out 3,000 young people at the stadium. More than 3,000. And I think when I look at all these programs here, you have a good team, first of all. You have a very good PS who's in the right heart, in the right place. And you have a good team. So you have technical support. You have a number of programs here that I can speak of. I can speak about the Valley Resource Center in St. George, which we set up. I can speak about Ellerton Social Center. I can speak about all these programs, yes, program. But there's one program I want to speak about, and that is the National Youth Service. And the reason why I want to speak on that this is the one program that can transform all Barbados. The National Youth Program, if you do it well, you can have the whole Barbados transformed. And I'm very thankful that the government has put in $15 million this year. I saw $15 million in this program. And this can transform Barbados based on your programs. I would like to see you working with the schools. I would like to see you working with the universities, because I believe firmly that we were trying to do this here as a government before the last up to 10 years that were wasted. But it is the very first time and I have been in this parliament for 20-something years, that I have seen so many young people in one place and one program. I want to thank you. That's the way the transformation starts. If you are able to get this program off the ground, we're all young people, because I firmly believe, right, that on reaching the age of 16, every young boy, every young girl should be part of a youth program, a developmental program. And if you can get this going, I believe that every cent that you get will be worth it. And I believe firmly that you need to work with the Ministry of Education, which the Minister has said, the community college, the university, and we have, I'm telling you, we have members in here, for example, the member for St. Joseph and the member for St. Andrew, who are members of the Kiwanis Club. And out of that, out of the Kiwanis Club, we had the Key Club going into the schools, and that helped to develop young people. We want to see the youth, National Youth Service in a big way, where young people are part of this program. Every young boy, every young girl must be part of this thing. And I miss it in the Ministry of Education yesterday. I want to say it, right? In some developed society, Minister, every person, every child, on reaching the age of 16 must do community work, must do 20 hours or 30 hours per week or per month of community work. And this is where we are. And I want to applaud you. Finally, I'm going to come back Monday, because I have a lot more to say about the Valley and other things. But I think I want to say that this program is the heart of what can transform Barbados. I want to thank you.
since we are keeping with the themes of reflecting on songs, I want to go to the words of Jimmy Cliff, and he says, better days are coming by and by.
Honourable Member for St. James North.
Thank you, Chairman, and Minister and your team. I commend the efforts you're putting in to transform the youth and the landscape of Barbados for the youth. I also admire and comment on the passion that you bring as a young minister to this portfolio. And of course your ministry really connects and contacts with many ministries, including the one of which I have ministerial mandate for the present moment, especially in terms of the government industrial school. And you are aware, because we've been in communication over the last 6 or so months from the time of the establishment of the youth advanced courts, that I have released in all, 14 young persons from the government industrial school to go into the youth advanced courts, the last 7, in fact, being last week. And I look forward to the continued success of that program. But I wanted to, as we come to a close today, ask you, Minister, in terms of the youth mainstreaming program 277, sub-program 570, providing for vocational training for at-risk youth on the block, and also seeking to address deviance within the school system. Very important as excuse me, very important as we seek to address the challenges of deviance among young people today. And invite you to speak as to how that relates now to your building block program, as you referred to it earlier on as entrepreneurship within building blocks.
Minister,
are they, they can be distinct, of course, and how will they be brought together, especially within the context of our educational system and deviance?
I want to thank you for your kind remarks, but I want to say to you that youth mainstreaming is a program that was collapsed into our employability programs. Okay. And you would have heard me spoke about earlier about the Get Into and Get Heard program. Mm-hmm. So that program really don't exist as a sub-program anymore. Okay. Right? So that is the answer. Mm-hmm. But certainly we will continue to do everything at the youth advanced Corps to ensure that there's a safe and productive space for our young people. And we welcome your ministry's input, because from the prison services, we recognize, that, of course, that a lot of young persons between 16 to 20 years old who will have run afoul of the law would want that second chance as well. So we also encourage, and we have started conversations with the Prison Association to give us that information so we can work with those young people. Mm-hmm. So I want to thank you for allowing us to be part of that exercise.
Okay.
And finally, Honourable Member for St. Michael's South.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The hour is late, and I do not intend to detain my colleagues very long. But I have a question. I spent most of my life in this sector. Community development, social policy, and so on. I actually headed the department, and I remember at that time we'd written a letter asking for community groups to respond, and most of the letters came back unopened because a lot of community groups really only exist on paper. And I know you're doing a fantastic job, but the government cannot be all things to all people. And I think if we're going to get to the point where we need to get to, there is a role for community organizations. There is a role for organic, genuine, functioning community organizations. And that one of the mandates of the ministry, and we haven't spoken about it, but it is so important, and it requires, I think, your reflection. One of the mandates of the ministry must be to help facilitate the development of community groups. And to the extent that we are then able, having facilitated the development of these groups, to then be able to do more programming through the groups that genuinely represent the interest, whether it be a community interest or some other constituency, but a genuine reflection. For example, I know it is our dire need and desire to be able to hand over some of these community organizations, community development organizations to community groups. But if there are no groups, then we can't get to that other stage of our plan and our strategy. So I just want to understand, and I know it's late, so you probably won't have a lot of time, but I just want to understand, first of all, that you do understand that there is this need to develop community organizations, and to what extent has that become part of your vision and part of the methodology for the community development department or for the Ministry of Youth, because it is fundamental to rectifying a number of these issues that we are currently dealing with.
I want to thank you, and I want to say to the entire Barbados that I will certainly take guidance from my elected colleague from St. Michael's South, because recognizing, of course, that's how we operate as a government. We have certain strengths, and I am happy to be able to involve you in this exercise because this is your training. So to roll out and flesh out this project, I'll be certainly asking the likes of yourself and the Member of Parliament for St. Thomas, and also the Member of Parliament for St. James South, because we have residual experience and knowledge in this cabinet, and that's how we operate as a government. So, as a member of Parliament, so we would certainly invite you to be part of this discussion as we flesh it out, but this is something that is going to become a reality because we believe that this is the best way of having communities being involved in their development and having a tangible stay at the same time.
Thank you. Honourable member, you're invited to sum up. Not yet? Oh, well, sorry, on Monday we continue.
Madam Chair, I beg to move that you do now report progress to His Honour the Speaker and beg leave to sit again.
The question is that I do now report to the Honourable Speaker and ask for leave to sit again. Progress and ask for leave to sit again. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. All honourable members against, please say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
The chairman of committees has reported progress and requests leave to sit again. Honourable Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to move that the sitting be suspended until the 2nd of March at 10 a.m. in the morning.
The question is that this honourable chairman be suspended until 10 a.m. on March 2nd, 2020. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. This honourable chairman stands suspended until 10 a.m. promptly on Monday, the 2nd day of March 2020.